Well, hello traders and investors. I'm LA Little and this is your weekly NeoTA wrap. Take a look at these markets, doing it from a neoclassical perspective. That means we're looking at supply and demand on the charts and we're asking ourselves what happened last week. What does it tell us about the coming ones? Do this show 4 times a week, every Monday through Thursday. Take that back. Do this show every Sunday, broadcast at or before 10 o'clock Eastern Time. Archived on YouTube, it's under the channel LA Little. I do a daily show 4 times a week, and that's Monday through Thursday, same time. If you haven't subscribed, you want to, just reach up in the right-hand corner, do so. If you want to subscribe to TA Today, that's pretty easy. You just come in here. I'm logged in already. Just create a login for yourself, become a member. You can join our newsletter. You can also get information that you otherwise can't get as a visitor here on the site. So do take that opportunity if you want, and if you want more in terms of trades, portfolios, things of that nature, then you might hit the get started button and see what that's all about. As far as what happened last week, let's take a look at those numbers. We got it cut off over here, but essentially the NASDAQ was the leader. Russell, S&P, Dow, pretty much flat. Takes everything up anywhere from 4 to 5%, 7.5 on the Russell. Let's look at the charts. On the daily chart here, we'll start with those. We're going to start with the S&P 500. You got bearish retest regenerates, right? They're here on this breakdown of this swing point low, that swing point low, and a higher swing point low. This is the widest range of that. It's the lowest of the ranges that you're retesting into. On Monday, you got the big pop up that tested into it. Then you got back underneath it, stayed underneath it. This is going to try and push down most likely again. Now, will it get down? Will it stay down? That's a different question, right? This is a little wedge, if you will, that's taking place on the downside. And a lot of times, you know, in classical TA, they'll tell you that's going to break the downside. Now, I don't know that it is, and the reason for it is over in other indexes, but we'll look here at the rest of this before we get going. Over on a longer term time frame, here we're looking at the weekly. You have a little hanging man. Even though you got back over it, you have more volume. That says, again, you're going to try and test back down again. And finally, if you pull over the monthly chart and you look at the monthly, you know, the test on this is back into this zone. It's in there. It's still testing it. Hasn't tried to regenerate to the top side. But again, that's a monthly time frame. Where we have the strength, though, is in the NDX. Apple pushes this thing up precipitously this last week. This is going back after the highs. You got all these highs sitting up here. You're not that far away from them. You got volume on the push up. If you look at it on the weekly, that's where you're trying to get. You got volume on the push. You did leave you know, a slight negative here where you have volume underneath if it wants to come back down. But this was a bullish retest regen, right? You come into the zone, you push it straight back out. You're trying to regenerate now. You're trying to prove that it wants to go higher. So far, so good. That's the same on the NASDAQ. The only other case is the Russell. If you look at the Russell looks more like the S&P. Looks like it could try and test lower again. If I had a preference for what's going to happen, you've got the Fed, you've got the Bank of Japan this week. If I look at the world markets, you know, what we're seeing in the world markets, in particular what we're seeing in Europe, suggests that we could get some more sloppy trades this week. I'll take you to Switzerland to start with. Switzerland pushes down big volume on Friday. That says it wants to test lower. If you look at it on the weekly, you've also got the same thing. This is doing a bullish retest, regenerate, immediate one on this swing point high. Now, I take that back. It actually isn't over it. So it never got over it. So I take that back. That is not true. It is just simply coming back down and testing back into those lows. So if we look at it from that perspective, then the question is, what is it testing into? Your big volume bars are here and here. Wide price spread as well. I would think that test would be the higher of the two, which is right in that area. That looks to me like what it's going to test into on that particular index in Switzerland. If we look at the DAX, comes down. Now the DAX on a daily, had already gotten under a key area. That was this big wide price spread bar to the top side. Got underneath it, stayed underneath it, now trying to generate lower. Volume expands. this looks like it's going to try and trade lower to start the week. If I look at it on a weekly, it's doing a bullish retest regenerate, just like so many other indexes. You've got this wide one up here, and you got another one inside of it. So what that says is this area right here is going to be the key area all the way back. It's into it. It's got volume. I think that push into the bottom of that zone and that price point, let me get it for you here, is 10,365. That looks like the key area, and we're trading at 10,276. Excuse me, 10,0040 is the number. 65 is the high, 40 is the low. So another 200 plus 220 or so to the downside, potentially. And if Europe is going to be weak, that's probably going to put some pressure on our markets. And so my suggestion here is that we could see some back and forth type action off of whatever these banks, central banks, do this week. If I had to say, you know, where would I look for something, I would go to an area that's a crowded trade, but yet when I look at it, it looks like it's ready to make a pop back to the top side. And I'm talking about the consumer staples. Gets down, hammer reversal, less volume. This is going to try to trade back up. And so, you know, if you're wanting to trade, you know, you can go, and I've got shared watch list. If you're a registered member, you can come in, right? You can come in, you can choose the tools watch list, right? And you can search down for my watch list, which will be, you'll see mine as, you know, like this says Fraser : Howard. You'll see mine, it says LA Little : XLP, this Weightings XLP one. If you come in here and look at it, there's a bunch of stocks. If I just start flipping through these, what you're going to see is almost every one of these are setting up to bounce. You know, they're coming back into an area that should hold, or they've got good bounce potential. Here's CVS. You've already got a little reversal, hammer reversal. It was down at the lows, got a reversal. If I look at Coke, almost every one of these are set up for some sort of a bounce. There's Coke, it's doing a retest, regen into this low, ready for a bounce, etc., etc. Almost every one in this list set up the same. You can pick any of them. You can pick the XLP itself. I think that might be a good place to get a trade-off this week if you're willing to look at those sectors. How do I feel about the market? I think the market eventually breaks to the upside. How I feel about it short term, you know, the next week or two could be tough still. So don't get too excited, but don't get pessimistic. I do think eventually this market goes higher. That's it for this week. Have a great one. Take care. See you next time.